once again, the teaching is contextualized around the Hindu tradition, but it is not an immersion into Hinduism, because that's not my motivation. Bring comfort into this learning, bring your scholarly curiosity, and there you go. You're good with it. Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 12, which has a lot of teachings on Bhakti Yoga, or Bhakti specifically, Lord Krishna has said, he has agreed to this position that we humans often need to see something with our senses and grasp it with our mind, and as a result, symbols of the indescribable, incomprehensible, all-pervading Ishwara are helpful. In Navratri, which happens in fall typically, the one we celebrate, we are going to look for a rock or some piece of nature like driftwood, etc., and give it the place of prestige as a goddess and communicate with that. So we will create our own symbol. By the way, today is the second day of spring Navratri. Yeah, Navratri has begun again. Navratri comes 4 times a year. So some of you may be aware it was yesterday. Today is the second day. And we have 7 more days to go. These 9 days are especially charged with the divine feminine. These are 9 days to eat season-appropriate diet based on which hemisphere you are in. That season will be going on. But this is definitely a time to remember the deity of Durga the first 3 days, Lakshmi the next 3 days, Saraswati the last 3 days. And remember, keep remembering how Durga is Ishwara coming to you as Durga, as in a symbolic representation, and she comes alive to bring you the fruits of your bhakti towards her. So I have time for maybe 2 questions. So I welcome your input based on what you heard about deities, avatars, and our journey forward. Arya?
Arya, you're muted. Your voice isn't coming through.
I still can't hear you for some reason. In the meantime, I can answer Victoria's question. What is it, Aparna?
Victoria asks, what do you think about the concept of having an Ishta Vivada?
Yeah, we'll come to that. And Ishta is a special form of Ishwara that you really relate with. And that can only come after knowledge. We should not pick up an Ishta because others are following it, or because you became introduced to it. I know many of you are very fond of the Deities, but just be. You can love any form of Ishta, but an Ishta would be someone that is really embodying your next level of growth into Ishwara consciousness. I'll give you my example. When I was facing a lot of obstacles in my life, I really started thinking of Lord Ganesh as my Ishta. And he's a very important deity of Ishwara and my go-to symbol of Ishwara. And yet my Ishta is Durga. Because while Ganesha deity always protects me, it is Durga who dangles me from the edge of a cliff. And every time I trust her and dangle from the edge of a cliff, I grow hugely, supremely. So you just never know, but you'll know through this year of Bhakti Yoga. Um, and an Ishta Devta again doesn't mean exclusivity. You can have a Ishta or an important deity, and then you can have a whole plethora of deities. How does it matter? Or you can have no deity, you can just have space or a waterfall there or a rock. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to keep repeating that because this freedom is the beauty in bhakti.
I don't know. Let's see if I don't know if can you hear me now?
I hear you now.
Thank you. I just want to so appreciate the very careful steps you take to have us understand, because it's very, like you say, it's enormously abstract to think of that supreme divine intelligence. And then we could say, well, I see it in this form, but then it seems childish until you explain the capacity of these forms representing that amount of that spectrum of divine intelligence, of creativity. So for me, it's really helpful to see the description of avatars and of the deities. It puts it in a whole different light, in a very scientific light, actually, and a very rational light for me. So I appreciate that.
You use the right words, Arya. I find the Vedic tradition scientifically spiritual.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I find
Yes.
it that way.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's why I didn't want to rush through everything is holy, everything is beautiful, everything is good, because then we won't do any work on ourselves. We still have to polish ourselves to bring out that divine light, because it's covered with the sediments of rajas and tamas even in our minds.
And have the courage to declare this as your knowledge, that you can focus in on that particular frequency and bring that into your reality, when another person might say, "Oh, this is foolishness. This is idolatry." But it's the knowledge. This brings us back to the original knowledge of how that energy can be garnished or brought together and transferred. I'm just grateful.
And for so long, our yogis, our rishis have been dumped with, they are pagans, they are
Yes.
Mm-hmm. They have monkeys running around as gods. What they don't understand is that you can't hold, if God is the great omniscient dimension, then you cannot hold back God from anything. And why must God only come through a human form? Why can't God come through an animal form or a plant form? Indeed, it can. So,
yes.
So Arya, for me, there's always, because I'm a scholar and a practitioner, not just a practitioner. For me, an underlying charge always is to clear the way and give credit where it's due. That's important to me, not because I have DNA, which is Indian, which just happens to be in this lifetime. It's not a big deal, but it really is creditable to the science of religion, science of God. That's important.
And that fabulous awareness that they had. You can't expect humans to capture this concept, so we have to make it capturable in these images that they can understand, and the power of physics, that you can actually get in sync with that vibration, and you can actually have that communication through that.
And say you're looking at a deity with 10 arms or 4 arms or holding different objects, and you have knowledge about it, then it's like a chemistry formula. H2 plus O2 is H2O, something like that. So when you look at the deity, this whole knowledge just becomes remembered.
Yes.
So the deity is not just a loving, sentimental, artistic depiction. I almost feel like they had a roundtable conference and they decided that the deity should be this. And it's very particular, like it can hold this but not that, because it represents aspects of the Ishwara in its complete purity and power.
Mm-hmm.
And so recently I was at a temple, and there was a Shivalinga, the Shiva's deity, made with pure crystal.
Mm-hmm.
And it wiped my brain clear, like, because it represents transcendence. And for days on end, I was almost in a trance, just looking at that deity and my writing, my teaching. And I think I'm a different person after that darshan or after that viewing. It also means what you take to that, because they were
Yeah.
tourists looking at it, and they were also eating popcorn while watching that deity, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But then I'm standing there with all my knowledge on the Shiva Lingam, the deity, and it was the deity. It was like Shiva was, like Ishwara was present there. So what happens with the deity is, I will ask each one of you at the end of this year to take on one deity per year and really work with its symbolism and then see what happens. And hopefully the gift you will give me is write blogs or articles or books on your experience.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something, you know. This is a whole science. And there is no idolatry in the Vedic tradition. Idols, that's why we don't call them idols. We call them deity or murti. And murti literally comes from, murti literally represents the static version of that which is dynamic.
Yeah, that's very lovely. It's very lovely. Yeah.
So it's like you've caught a wave in a particle in that moment. So happy blessings, and look forward to unfolding the deity of Lord Ganesha to you. Take care, everyone.